Okay, welcome. Today is April 22nd, 2020. My name is Jim Brule, and I'm here to do a walkthrough with you of the new Zoom settings. Many of them are the same, but I'm going to just walk through each one and let you know where we stand. I'm going to be presenting settings that I think work best for large groups. You may have other intentions, and I'll try and identify for you what your options might best be, but let's get started. So I've gone to the settings page, which is by going to my personal account and then selecting settings here in the left hand. And most of what we're going to do is in this meeting submenu, although we'll look at the recordings as well. And just as a reminder, these are tabs into this very long document. So you don't need to click on them. They just kind of indicate your progress through the document. So let's get started. The first thing is host video. Do you want your video on when you start? I suggest that's a good idea. When you're there, you'd like people to see you and know that you're online. But I do shut off participants' video. One of those things that helps prevent some Zoom bombing. So I'll leave that shut off. In terms of audio type, again, I want to leave it wide open for opportunities for telephone and computer audio both. But I will shut off join before host, and this is one of the great preventions for Zoom bombing. At least nobody can be doing things before you get there. The next few settings have to do with personal meeting IDs. Everyone has a personal meeting ID, and you can use it when you schedule a meeting. We recommend that's a bad idea. You don't want your personal ID meeting number to get known, so you don't ever use that to schedule a meeting. Its purpose really is to have these private instant meetings between people, and so I do use it for that. Not such a big issue in this particular use case. Only authenticated users can join meetings. We found this to be more problematic than useful. While it does prevent some people from getting in, what it means is people have to be actually signed in with the browser account that they've been using, the Zoom account that they've been using when they accepted the meeting. It gets to be just a pain. So I suggest you don't turn this on. And that's true for just in general and from web clients. So again, leave that one set off. But absolutely, as per Zoom's recommendations, requiring a password is important. They've gotten better at it as well. The passwords are being encrypted better. Lots is going on there, so that's a good thing. I don't require a password for instant meetings because in this particular case, I'm going to require it for meetings using PMI, and that's how I do instant meetings. So that's you can do that either way. And I do embed the password in a meeting link for one-click join. We'll talk about why that's a reasonable thing to do. If you were going to send the meeting invitation with an embedded password to a broad public audience, you wouldn't want to do this, but there's a better way to get your meeting out there to people, and it allows you to embed that password in. So why would you embed it at all? Well, a lot of people who do the Zoom bombing are people who just have found your meeting number, but they've scraped it from one thing or another. And so the chances of them having your password are going to be reduced, especially if you use registration to get into your meetings. So I would say leave that one embedded on. That's okay. Originally we said it wasn't a good idea, but I think it's a good idea now. You do want to require a password for participants joining by phone. It's a pain for them, but again, this is a strong recommendation from Zoom. And yes, you want to mute participants upon entry. Again, you don't want people to be able to do things when you're out there to supervise them. I happen to do contact integration with my calendar. I'm calendar integration, not contact integration. It's a big advantage to me, and you can see there it's now managed on your profile page. I don't worry about upcoming meeting reminders. That's built into my calendar. Okay, now basic. See, we're in the second tab here. Requiring encryption for third-party endpoints, not such a big deal for us. If you were a more secure operation, you would turn that on, but it doesn't. It's not necessary. I do allow chat. That's a critical part of a lot of what I do. Some people say you shouldn't allow private chat. I haven't had a problem there. The idea is that in a very large meeting, people might be saying things that would be offensive, but you don't know about it. If you're worried about that, shut it off. It's not such a big deal. And auto-saving chats, I always leave that on just because I never know when I'm going to want it. If I don't need it, I can just throw it away. Turning sounds on for when people enter or leave is really annoying. I should have that shut off. And a way of preventing both Zoom bombing and hacking is to shut off the file transfer. Now, there will be some instances where you want to be able to transfer a file, but there's so few and far between that I'd say when that happens, do it through a vehicle other than in-meeting chat. Feedback to Zoom, that's just a nice thing to give people the chance to do, as well as the next one, end of meeting experience feedback survey, but I just do that randomly. Now, the next ones, these are important. Co-host. A co-host is almost the same as a host. They can help a lot, and you definitely want to be able to have, especially in a large meeting, you want to have co-hosts enabled, so turn that on. Polling, some people like to use it. It doesn't hurt anything to have it on. The next two show the meeting control toolbar and the Zoom windows during the screen share. Absolutely, leave them on. It makes your management of the meeting much easier. Now, screen sharing. Here's the big question. Are you going to allow other people to share their screens? This is meeting dependent. And I normally don't let others share their screen, so I have it set to host only. You can change this in a meeting if you need to. So I would leave it at host only, and I would always leave that only the host can take over the sharing when someone else is sharing. You see, it's grayed out here because all participants can't share, but I would always leave it host only. You don't want somebody to be able to steal the screen sharing from you. This one, disable desktop screen share for users. That's an interesting question, and I go back and forth on it. What it basically means is if you've disabled it, you can only show selected applications if you're sharing. So I'm going to turn this back on. This is an old setting because sometimes it's useful to be able to let the person show their whole screen. But the risk there, and the reason not to do it, is that perhaps you've got something on your screen that you don't want them to see. So that's your call. Annotation has not proven to be useful for me, and it is one of the ways that people share unpleasant things when they're Zoom bombing, so that's shut off by recommendation. But I do turn on the whiteboard. It's something I use a lot, and I auto-save it because, again, I don't want to have to remember to do that. I've turned off remote control. That's just an invitation to somebody doing something untoward. But I'm going to turn on nonverbal feedback. It's especially if you're having a large meeting, it's a quick way for people to express their opinions. So that's a good thing to have on. I don't allow removed participants to rejoin. I have the sickle of death here. If you've been behaving badly enough, then I'm going to throw you out. I'm going to throw you out. And this is especially important if you're worried about Zoom bombers. You don't want to let them keep trying to get back in. The downside of this, leaving this off, is simply that you might click on someone by mistake and expel the wrong person. I'm willing to take that risk. So I do allow people to rename themselves. Again, can be something that people could get offensive with. On the other hand, you can always expel them. So I don't worry about that too much. And if they've got a profile picture, I like to see that. Now we're into an advanced. Give hosts the option to report participants to Zoom. This is a new feature. Absolutely turn it on. And for me, breakout rooms are critical, so I'm going to leave that turned on. I'll allow myself to assign participants in advance, although frankly, I haven't really used that. I tend to do more random room assignments. Remote support is something that, again, invites challenges. It's mostly useful for tech support, so I leave that turned off. With, I know, a lot of multilingual stuff coming up and other things, these are things I think you want to turn on. So you can see it's giving me a little help there. Closed captioning. I want to also allow language interpretation. Now that the challenge there is, as it currently stands, that means having somebody sit at the other end and do typing, or that's the captions part, or have someone take over the screen as your interpreter. There is no real split screen in Zoom right now, so you may or may not choose to use that, but you should have it turned on. And I would allow people to save captions if they want. Far end camera control really doesn't have anything to do with meetings. This is a big business operation. The group HD video I turn off just to save. There's actually it's turned off for me because I have a single user account. Virtual background, everybody loves it, leaves it turned on. The guest participants is only meaningful in a large organization, so not worth turning on. Similarly, auto answer group and chat, you don't want to set up these robots to answer you. And the other things are, again, more big company sorts of things. Allow users to select stereo audio in their client settings. I will turn that back on, especially in terms of performances, although it's not done as much right now. Who knows when that'll be useful. And also for music, you want to allow them to select original sound. That way they can hear the less compressed audio coming over. Select data centers, that's not relevant to us. Let's go down now. For the waiting room, that's now default on all over the place. Again, guest participants only applies to large corporations. You can customize the title, logo, and description of your waiting room. So let's take a quick look at that. You can say, this is what I've done. This will be filled in with the meeting ID. I've simply put my icon here and changed the text here. Please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. I could do a waiting room description. I don't use it often enough. I just like to have my logo there. So that's kind of nice. Do I show, now the cost of the waiting room, by the way, is that you have to keep monitoring it to let people in. They can sit there if you get distracted for quite a while. So this is a good job for a co-host. You also at some point can say, I'm confident of the people who are coming here. I just want it on in the beginning of the meeting. And then you can turn it off and let everybody in later. That's at your risk, of course. Joining from your browser link, again, lets people in with having to do less credentialing to get into the meeting. I don't like that, so I turn it off. And there are a number of different live streaming services. The two that most of us will be interested in are Facebook and YouTube. There may be a custom service that comes along that you want to integrate with. That'll take some extra work. Email notifications are basically work-saving things. If you're recording to the cloud, it's nice to get an email when it's ready. Nice to know that attendees are waiting there. Let people know when things have been canceled or when an alternative host is either set or removed from a meeting. And that would be in advance, so that really doesn't apply to us. Nor does the next one when someone is scheduled for a meeting with a host. Someone's scheduled a meeting for a host. That doesn't apply except in multi-user organizations. And the last little bit here doesn't have much to do with us in terms of the blurring the snapshot on the task switcher. I'm not worried about that. There is an invitation email that can go out that's specific to their profile settings. That's okay. Leave that on. It's in English. And then scheduling privilege, again, only applies to multi-user organizations, so not most of us. Okay, let's go back up to the top and look at recording, because there are some settings here as well. Do you want to allow local participants to record? I generally say yes. I don't think it matters a whole lot, but if you're worried about it, shut it off. This is the complicated one, cloud recording. Do you want to allow I'm sorry, the features underneath the cloud recording. Do you want to allow cloud recording or not? Cloud recording, I turn it on, although I don't usually use it, but I like to leave the option on. If I would happen to be at a computer that either wasn't as powerful or didn't have the space I needed for recording, it's nice to be able to throw it to the cloud. That becomes an option in each meeting, so just turn it on and give yourself the option. Now, these next buttons are really kind of critical. What are you going to actually record? I found out the hard way here. If you record the active speaker with a shared screen, that also means that all you get is the active speaker, and it's kind of hard to see what goes around, what other people are doing. It's always switching to the active speaker. I really don't like that one. Record the gallery view with a shared screen. Okay, that's better. But again, I want to be able to do both. So I record the active speaker, the gallery view, and the shared screen separately. And you could pick two of them if you wanted instead of all three, but I do all three. So if I've got a shared screen, that'll come out as its own recording, as will the gallery view, as will the active speaker. Now, why is that useful? It's useful because a lot of my meetings, for example, I'm having people tell stories during the meeting. And if I've got an active speaker view, I've automatically isolated them for that part of the meeting. I don't have to go off. Remember to turn it on and pin the video and turn it off. It's a savings in that regard. It does mean when I'm editing, I have to edit it so that the active speaker view is the one that's showing, not the gallery view at that time. That's a pretty trivial edit, so I'm happy to do that. And I record an audio-only file. It's useful to have if you're doing other uses of the recording you're making. And I always save the chat messages. It's just, I never know when I'm going to want them, and I don't have to think about it. I don't add a timestamp or the participants' names. I find that clutters the recording, so I don't like to have them there. I do record the thumbnails when they're sharing. That means the thing down the side. And I absolutely optimize for a third-party video editor because I do a lot of video editing. And if you're in a webinar, you have panelists, and this will save that chat as well, and that's absolutely useful. I have turned off recording meetings automatically as they start, simply because I found I was not using most of the recordings, and it wasn't worth it to me. It means on occasion I forgot to record a meeting that I wanted, but that's a price I'm willing to pay. The next set of things require the IP address control and authenticated users. Just leave those off. Not relevant to our level of use. I do require the password to get to a shared cloud recording, although I don't use cloud recordings much, so that's just a little extra bit of safety there. And I do want to auto-delete the cloud recordings. I don't want to fill up my space with old recordings. And finally, the host can delete cloud recordings. Not really relevant since it's a single-person thing. Of course I can. You don't want to shut that off. That would be relevant if you had more than one user in your organization, and that would mean multiple people could delete the recording. I don't leave the recording disclaimer up because that's something I speak about, but you could put one on if you wanted to, and then you can customize it. And the last one I certainly don't want to do, and that gives you that recording beep, the recording notification that it's being recorded throughout the recording, and I just don't want that on at all. So those are the settings, the latest version of Zoom, and it should be up to Zoom 5.0 for you right now. If not, it will be momentarily. So thanks again, and this is Jim Brule with Transformational Storytelling. Thanks for being a part of this.